Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. It used to happen rather often, but frankly, I haven't heard of this happening much at all lately. I remember one time when it happened to me. I was going through a drive-thru at a McDonald's, I think, and when I got to the window to pay, the person in front of me had paid for what I wanted. They drove off, and I never got to thank them. My food that day was a gift of complete grace. One side acted, and I was the beneficiary. This week we are speaking about the depth of God's love for us. Yesterday we talked about how God's love endlessly pursues us, and today we turn to talk about God's covenant love. It's much like that person who paid for my food. God does everything involved. It's one-sided. God does it all. To look at this topic, we're going to look at an odd, enigmatic passage in Genesis, one that frankly I've never known what to do with if I were going to preach on it. Recently, I learned a new take on this passage. It comes from Genesis 15, and let me read this story to you. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, You have given me no offspring, so a slave born in my house is to be my heir. But the word of the Lord came to him. This man shall not be your heir. No one but your very own issue shall be your heir. He brought him outside and said, Look toward heaven and count the stars if you are able to count them. Then he said to him, So shall your descendants be. And he believed the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness. Then he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you from the Ur of the Chaldees to give you this land to possess. But he said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I shall possess it? He said to him, Bring me a heifer 3 years old, a female goat 3 years old, and a ram 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all these and cut them in two, laying each half over against the other, but he did not cut the birds in two. And when birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. When the sun had gone down and it was dark, a smoldering firepot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I give this land. Now, I think any of us would be quick to admit that that's an odd story, and we don't really know what to make of it. Then again, we probably well understand the position Abram found himself in. Abram is afraid, for he has no child, no land, no future, and God tells him, I am your shield. As any of us would do, Abram responds, How do I know this? What will you give me to cement the deal? Abram isn't really doubting here. Rather, he's seeking understanding, and God reassures him. God suggests a ritual that seems to be fairly common in that day. In those days, if you made a covenant or a contract with someone else, there was a solemn ritual that sealed the deal. Animals were cut in half, and both parties walked between the pieces, saying, May this happen to me if I break the covenant. That's where this ancient story of Abram suddenly takes a significant turn. The animals are there, ready, but Abram never walks through the pieces. Only God does. God causes a deep sleep to fall on Abram, and only God walks through the pieces. God is saying, if this covenant is broken, I will bear the cost. Well, the truth is we will fail. Abram will fail. Israel will fail. We will fail. But God will not. God binds God's self to us with a covenant sealed in blood, ultimately the blood of Christ. God's love is unconditional, unbreakable, undeserved, and unfailing. It's all done on God's side as a matter of grace. There's one more small thing here. Verse 6 says, "And he believed the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness." Abram doesn't do anything of significance in this passage. He sets the stage for the covenant ritual, and that's it. Yet in his faith, God considered him righteous. God declared that from God's side, Abram was righteous before God. It's a gift of grace we share even today. Abram stands before God with empty hands. God fills them with promises. Abram brings nothing to the covenant. God brings everything. This is covenant love, the love that binds itself to us forever. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.